What is going on, people, family, friends? Hey, happy Monday. And, ooh, child, I feel like already Monday and there's just so much. I've been watching, the Chauvin trial, and today was day one, opening statement. So I wanted to give a recap for anybody who wasn't able to listen or watch. A breakdown. It started this morning, and we had Mr. Floyd's family, Ben Crump, Al Sharpton was out there, and they were doing a press conference. And they said, made some statements, and all kind of gathered together and kneeled for 8 minutes, 46 seconds. And that was powerful because if you can do anything for 8 minutes, 46 seconds, you know how long that is and how painful that would be to have your knees on anything hard for that long. And so just to honor and to bring awareness back to this moment, right? Because we were all here May 2020 last year. And so it was really super important to kind of bring everybody back to that space. And then prosecution and defense did opening statements, y'all. And the opening statements, we learned some things that maybe we didn't know before. And one of the things was, it wasn't 8 minutes, 46 seconds. It was 9 minutes, 29 seconds. According to the footage that the former officer, had his neck on, or had his knee on George Floyd's neck. 9:29. We also learned that George Floyd called out 27 times and said he can't breathe. We also learned that one of the biggest strategies for the defense is going to be the intersection of any drugs that were in Mr. Floyd's system and when he took them and how he took them. And in some sort of form of fashion, him taking the drugs equated to why he's dead. As if he'd have been just walking around and had been dead either way, which we know is a bunch of BS. But anyway, so we learned those things just in the opening statements. And then we saw 3 witnesses today. The first witness was a 911 dispatch caller. And homegirl came in ready. Do you hear me? You don't never mess with no call center worker. I've been a call center worker. If you've ever worked in a call center, they did not come to play. She did not come to play. And one of the things we learned that I had never heard before was that she called the police's supervisor on the police. Okay, so homegirls, just imagine this for a second. She is in May 25th, 2020, doing her job, call center. She comes on at 12:30. Minding her business, doing her job, 6 screens in front of her, 2 screens up at the top, and describing it. Homegirl described how she got up multiple times and saw they had a city camera. And if you're from any inner city, you know that they put city cams and street cams and all these things up on kind of corners or neighborhoods or areas where there's a lot of crime or known for crime or criminal areas. So there you have, this cam was up in the dispatch center. And so homegirl said that she was dealing with the calls back and forth coming to Cup Foods. Now, Cup Foods is the grocery store on the corner where George Floyd was killed. So she's dealing with the calls back and forth, and all of a sudden she's looking up and she sees there's a street cam with eyes on the exact scenario that she's dispatching. She can actually see it, which she said was very rare because normally you don't get to see the police in action. You're just kind of behind the scenes on the team, handling your business, getting people to where they got to be. But in this case, she actually looked up and she was like, wait, that's the place I'm literally sending people to. So she got up and walked over and she began to notice. And so they had her walk through and watch the footage that she was talking about and dispatching police to. She was watching it. And so today in court, they had her watch the video again, and they had her kind of point out at what points she remembers seeing what she saw. But the biggest deal about this was she thought at one point that the screen had glitched and paused because the police officers had been on Mr. Floyd for so long. She thought the screen had broken. Okay, so she got up and was like, tap, tap. Hey, everybody, is this broken? Like, because they've been on this man for a minute. Now, this is homegirl, 911 dispatch, doing her job, minding her business. So she gets up and realizes, Houston, we have a problem. And so she goes ahead and calls the sergeant up and was like, hey, Sarge. And what's interesting is they played the tape, and homegirl had to say, now think about this for a second. She is part of the law enforcement squad, the law enforcement team. You know what I'm saying? And so she is literally like, I don't want to call on my people, right? Because these are her people. These are the people that she protects and is part of the team. And so she calls the sergeant. She was like, I don't mean to be a snitch, but... So here's the crazy part, is that she had that in her spirit, that she could potentially be snitching by calling the sergeant on Officer Chauvin and them, who were sitting on Mr. Floyd that whole time, to the tune where she thought the screen had broke. So she called the police, their supervisor, on the police. That was huge. I had not heard that. So we learned that. We learned the second witness. God bless the second witness. Homegirl was funny. They basically called her as a foundational witness to get in one of the videos, right? There's a lot of video footage, and in the legal system and trials, you have to have foundation. And if the other side will not stipulate to the foundation, then you have to call the witness. And you're not necessarily responsible for who that witness is who caught that footage, right? So the first witness, she was bomb. She was great. She was a dispatch worker doing her job. And no matter what the defense was going to do, you weren't going to get her one way or the other. It was what it was. She saw what she saw. She did what she did. The second witness, God bless her. Homegirl came in with the eyelashes, the purse. She was doing the whole nine. It was awesome. And apparently she worked at Speedway. She was from Arizona, to the tune of wearing an A up in court. It was funny. So there she is. She gets on the stand. And basically, again, just to lay the foundation to say, you were there. You were the one that took this video. Yes, yes, and yes. Other than that, she didn't have much else to say. Couldn't remember nothing. And homegirl really looked like she had taken some sort of cocktail prior to arriving to the stand, which is funny because when you talk about intoxication, she looked like she had had a couple too many, or smoked a couple, or taken a couple. Either way, God bless her and her tape. So we get the tape in. Homegirl takes the stand. Now she's gone. Now the third witness today, let me tell you something. The officers, I'm sure, realized they was having a bad day when one of the witnesses who happened to be there, and I didn't know this, was basically a mixed martial artist, a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy, younger black dude who was basically just happened to be strolling by when all this took place, who not only is a mixed martial artist, but also trains with law enforcement, CIA, at whatever club that they train in. So he's strolling by in his slides, minding his business. He just went fishing, normal day, normal dude. Well, the prosecution really was trying to set up the fact that this guy was minding his business, a normal, decent dude. And P.S. knows all about law enforcement tactics, mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu, all the things. Now, this is a guy who can basically testify almost as an expert witness from the point of observation, which is very rare. So that was amazing, because normally you just have your regular Joe Blows and Susie Smiths and whomever are the people that usually witness crimes. This gentleman witnessed it and also happened to be an expert in use of force for law enforcement based on what he does himself and also who he's been around. So he literally shared that he was coming down, going to get a drink, did not even go into the store, never got his drink, because he said his energy called him around the corner. He walks up, sees what they're doing, and begins to kind of call out. And if any of the videos you listen to, you will hear his voice, because he's one of the most vocal people. Homeboy said that Chauvin wouldn't look at him, not once, and then finally he called out the name of the move, the mixed martial art move, the jiu-jitsu move, called, I guess, the chokehold. No, the blood choke. I think it was the blood choke. But anyway, he said, bro, you're doing the blood choke. At which point, that was the only time, and you see it on the film, where Chauvin looks up and looks him dead in his eyes. And the witness was like, and then he acknowledged me because he heard me, he recognized what I said, and he looked up and looked over at me. And then the prosecution, this was genius, the witness went on to talk about what's called a shimmy. And I don't do mixed martial arts, but a shimmy apparently is a thing where you continue to kind of squeeze in any sort of choke to kind of lose all of any excess space, right? So you're just increasing the volume or the intensity of the choke. Homeboy talked about how while he was sitting there, he could tell that Chauvin was continuing to shimmy on on George Floyd's neck. So not only was he just in the position of a choke position, but also was shimmying to increase the intensity, which is huge. So they played the video and had this dude who just happened to have this experience and expertise, who also happened to firsthand observation see this, and tie it together by saying, right there he shimmied, right there he shimmied, right there he shimmied. That's huge. I've tried a lot of cases, and the likelihood that you're going to get witnesses that, one, are even coherent or understand what's going on, and then have any sort of expertise that will actually be relevant to what you're doing. They got their money's worth with that witness, okay? Because the defense was not ready for who happened to be there, right? And that was a true miracle, because this guy not only was articulate, happened to be there, happened to be in the know, understood, said his energy was like, something's not right around this corner, said it was calling him to that other side. And on top of that, was able to speak to the actual movements, motions, and use of force that the officers were using, to the tune of he's trained with them. I was like, what now? Let me get that straight. He's not trained with, he didn't say he knew those officers, but he trains with law enforcement, Minneapolis PD, in the place where he's at. So same language. So that was today. That was huge. The 911 dispatcher, homegirl from Speedway, and the jiu-jitsu dude, like, that is the way to open up a case. Now, of course, there's going to be a lot of here, there, and all the other things, but we got to keep focused on the fact that this should not be hard. This is broad daylight. This is murder on the streets. And I don't care if this brother had 17 tons of acid, every sort of cocktail you can come up with. At that point, he was not a threat to anyone. He should not have been murdered. I don't care if he wrote a $1 million fake bill. None of that is ultimately going to matter, and we have to keep that on the right focus. So anyway, that was today. That was kind of crazy. There were protesters out there. It was nonviolent. It was what it needed to be, and it is good to bring the attention back to May of last year. As hard as it is, we got to do that. So anyway, I just had to recap. Love and peace, y'all. Hope everyone's doing well. All right.